Brian of London here. Baroness Jihad Jenny Tonge has retired or given up her whip from the Liberal Democrats. That doesn't really mean very much because she is still a baroness, which means she gets to sit in the upper House of Lords in the UK, which is, Jonathan Sacerdoti sent me an interview from I24 News that he was part of. So Baroness Tonge was on the line and they pulled Jonathan Sacerdoti onto it. Now, if Jonathan Sacerdoti had been running the interview, that would have been great, but he wasn't, unfortunately. One of the I24 lefty people was doing it and just had no clue. She kicked off her tirade, and they let her go far too long on this, by saying that the Balfour Declaration, because that was what her event was about in London that has sort of led to this, the Balfour Declaration somehow should have protected the indigenous people of Palestine.
In 1917, this declaration said that the Jews should have a home in Palestine so long as the human and physical rights of the indigenous people of that area were not affected.
And I'm like, that's like my trigger warning. That's like, I don't know, telling me which bathroom I have to use. That set me into a rage, and I had to actually throw down my phone and go back and watch the clip later again. Oh my God, the indigenous people of Palestine. And of course, the interviewer can't scream back at her like I'm going to now. The indigenous people of Palestine are Jews. Jews. And it rained last night, further proving my Sukkot point. The indigenous people of Palestine are the Jews, and her beloved Arabs are colonial invaders, and nobody's really telling that story. This is the point. This is what we're not doing here. It's what I'm trying to do. Doing it with Kay, doing it with all sorts of other people. Ryan obviously kicked us off. The way to counter a Jihad Jenny is not with the kind of how nice we are and what we do in the world and all of that other stuff. It's not working. It hasn't worked. It's the indigenous story. So that's I'm not even going to, I thought maybe I'd splice this video in with the interview from I24, but honestly, the 8-minute interview on I24 News is so horrible. It just doesn't deserve to be more widely seen, and it's such a pity. I know that Jonathan would have done a much better job, but he had just a chance to fire 2 questions off at Baroness Tonge. They were good questions because he was asking her directly about the people who supported the meeting that she organised, who are branded as terrorists in Israel, not by England, but terrorists here. But she's a slippery fish, and it underlines the enormous problem. And also yesterday we have the event that you can't speak in London. Chen Mazig was supposed to speak, shouted down, shouted out, police called, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, shouted. They don't want to hear, because my belief is that deep down inside everybody knows some truth. And if you're brought up on this Islamic version of history, which is just complete nonsense, the Islamic version of history that leads to Temple Mount denial and all of that stuff, it does something bad to your soul, and it breaks you inside. And so you mustn't listen. You mustn't listen when we tell the truth about Jews being connected to Israel. And the whole gamut of Judaism, be it religious Judaism or just a sort of a nationalistic Zionist Judaism, it's all a big mix, and it all stems from this land where I'm sitting in Tel Aviv, as it turns out today. But everything about us comes from this land, and nothing about Arab and especially Muslim Arab culture comes from this land. Arab Christians, different story. Arab Muslims, descendants of colonial invaders who took the place. It was largely a washed out ruin after the decline of the Roman Empire. The Arab Muslim armies moved in, took it, ran it down to almost nothing. The Turks took over, Muslims again, ran it to nothing. That story, that they are colonial invaders, and that this large number of people, who I freely admit we have living within our territory, they are belligerently holding on to a myth that they are somehow the real descendants of the original people who lived here, and they're not. And that's the Indigenous story. I'm going to keep going on and spreading it, and thanks for watching, and Shabbat Shalom, and see you all when I do another one of these some other time. Bye.